Kia ora, and welcome to a fireside chat. My name is Anna Marie Fanthorpe, and I'll be your host today. Today we have a very special guest. Peter from MedImage and AtomJump is here with us today, and we're going to be talking about his business MedImage, and we're also going to take a look at AtomJump as well. So it's going to be a cool little collaborative session where we see how these two platforms interact and how he uses one to help support the other. So I think it should be really interesting. You know, what I love about fireside chats is we get that opportunity to chat with small businesses around New Zealand and find out all the innovations that they use to drive their business, and also get a little bit of inspiration that we could do it too if we put the effort in and we find the right people to connect with. So this fireside chat is being recorded. So if you're attending live, you can rewatch it. It'll come in a thank you email. Thank you for attending email in about like the next 24 hours or so. Or you can always find all of our fireside chats that we've run to date on the main dashboard of DigitalBoost. If you scroll down on the right-hand side, there's an in case you missed it section. There's a couple of sessions there, Q&As and fireside chats. But if you click on the view more, you'll see the archives of all the sessions we've run to date. Now, this is actually a very special session because this is our last fireside chat. So I'm like really excited to finish on this note. I think it'll be a really great way to kind of wrap it all up into a bun. And we're going to be doing different things with small businesses coming up in the future. So yeah, this has just kind of been what we've been doing since January. So here we go, the kind of the closing of a journey. How are you this morning, Peter?
Great, thanks, Anna Marie. Yep. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm really well. Thanks again for joining us. So let's jump right into MedImage to start with. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, what is MedImage and what made you start this this journey with this business?
Sure. Well, it was a few years ago. I was actually I was a patient in with a doctor with my personal GP, and he knew of me. He knew that I was sort of had an IT background, and he had a bit of an IT background himself. And he said, you know, I've been asking our practice management system company to build this sort of add-on feature for their system for some years now, and it hasn't been built. And so what he wanted really was a facility for doctors to take a photograph of their patients and then to see that photograph transferred across directly onto their practice management system. So it was a way of really of storing an image of a skin lesion or whatever it was on the patient, which needed a visual sort of way of remembering what it was actually like in the past. And they could refer back to that photograph or pass it on to other different organizations. And so he did have a way of doing this, but it was quite a long-winded way, and it involved taking a photograph off his phone, emailing it to himself, you know, all these sorts of steps, downloading it. It was not named correctly, and so forth. And so he really wanted just something simple where he could type in the patient identifier, known as the NHID, and it would get sent directly through, and instantly it would be on his patient record for that one patient. And so yeah, we set about building this, and we had fairly quickly had a preview for him to have a look at, and he said, "Oh, yeah, I was just mentioning it in passing. I didn't actually expect you to build the thing."
Yeah.
So yeah, we had something going fairly quickly, but you know, that was obviously my background is in software. However, taking it through to a full product did take a lot longer.
How many people did you have on your team?
So we have about 3 of us regulars, and we bring in other people, you know, when we need to at various times. So obviously Robert, who's our doctor, he provides sort of advice from the medical side and what they need from their point of view. And our background is software and so forth. We actually do the building of the software. So
It's just such a cool idea. Now, did you have to take a lot of considerations into, privacy and things like that? Because it is the medical field. So,
yeah, very much. Yes, but no, we had to ensure that any information ideally was not being stored on our servers. So we have a very quick transfer across onto the doctor's servers themselves. So that was pretty crucial to sort out a good route through and make sure it was easy to set up, but also B, it kept that privacy happening. And so for us, we store at maximum that any one given photograph for only about 10 seconds on our servers before it gets deleted completely off both the phone and off our servers. But yeah, again, we had to deal with the possibility that they didn't want them coming onto our servers as well, which is another sort of level again. And so photographs can potentially go completely over their own network. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a very cool technology. I can see how it would be so useful. So how long did it take you to start like the creation of this, the idea to actually having the product that you could then market and push out?
So I think it was probably about 6 months from start to finish before we really had something which we could take out and doctors could actually start using. And then from there, this was back in 2016, I think. So from there, once the service is up and running and we had people starting to use it, then you've got to maintain that service, and that was the next challenge. And we had to build on top of what we had and make it a bit more user friendly. So yeah, it overall we probably spent about 3 years really on development on MedImage and various different forms of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really awesome. So I love it. This is what I love about these sessions is that, you just get to hear about all this cool tech or things that you just didn't know existed that are out there. Now, tell me a little bit about like some of the challenges. So you've talked a little bit about the image being transferred and things like that. What are some other challenges that you had with just getting this business off the ground, whether it was financial or what have you?
Yeah, so financially speaking, we're basically an open source company, if you like, AtomJump. So we started off with, we're in the messaging space with open source technology. And so our
What
GP
is open
software,
source? Sorry, can we
oh,
do?
sorry, yeah,
Yeah, that'd be great.
get onto the very basics of that. So open source is it's a little bit like a public peer review of all of the operation, the code behind your software. Other developers and other people who can investigate the source code that you've written, and we publish it like that. In the past, traditionally, a lot of software has been written in a private sense, and it's meant that my screen's just going a little bit dark here. It's been, a lot of software is written and nobody has access to it. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And so that's been the traditional model for quite a few years. But in the background, there have been a lot of open source developments, which means that all of that software is published, it's readable by everybody else. And it gives a little extra level of trust, I think, with customers often and with other people trying to plug software into it. And so for us, that has helped our experience with the doctors. That they know that they can trust our software, they can read it for themselves, and even potentially make their own modifications if they wanted to. And that's important. If we were not in business, if we went out of business, they could carry on using our software as well without necessarily us being there. So for us, we had commercially, we still have to earn an income. And so really what we sell is convenience. So the software people can, they can download it, they can try it out for themselves, but we sell it in a format which is just easier for them to set up and easier for them to start with. And so in that sense, that's really our business model, is to make sure that there's a very user-friendly steps to get there. So yeah, it is nonetheless, it's a fairly challenging model, because you're relying on the fact that you're not depending on the fact that software is completely sort of tucked away in proprietary and so forth. So you have to offer a good service and have that add-on value. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fantastic. So I guess like those are some of the challenges. What are some of the successes? Like I know some of the numbers behind your business, but let's share some of that and any other successes that you feel are relevant, because success isn't always gauged by, how many people use your app or things like that. It often there's those hidden gems that we enjoy as just creators. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, well, I think on this particular project, on the MedImage one, I think it was just the ability to be able to help people directly and use some of my software skills to be able to deal with people with health issues. We've dealt with an organisation in Christchurch here called Nurse Maud, and we've done a lot of wound analysis with them as well, as sort of add-on products to our basic MedImage. And yeah, just the ability to be able to see that there's a direct patient there, you're helping them out directly with a piece of technology, and you're saving doctors time as well. And to them, that's pretty crucial, I'd say, in this day and age when doctors are stressed and they're time short. So yeah, just to be able to help that sort of community on something which, as a software sort of with that sort of background, you're just dealing with databases or whatever. It's quite abstract, and you're not dealing with the people face to face. So yeah, in this case, we were really dealing with them directly, and being able to go into the doctors' practices and talk with them and see what they need and so forth. It's been, it's quite humbling almost to have been given that opportunity, really.
Yeah, now let's hear the number, because I know the number. It's a huge number of doctors and places that use your technology.
If you've got the right number. Yeah,
I don't know. I thought I had a good number.
we have around 300 doctors around New Zealand using it at the moment. So we've grown that up gradually over time. So that's in about 40 practices now in around New Zealand. So there's still a large number of practices which are not using our technology yet, but there's room to grow here and go internationally potentially as well.
Yeah. It's really cool. I don't see why not. I'd love to, let's get into some of the digital tools that you use, and let's start with the website so that I can kind of showcase your website so that you can see what you guys look like. So we've got a brand behind the name, and we can see that, can't we? Looks good.
Yep. Yep.
There we go. There we go. Okay, so we've got, let me move this out of the way. All right, so this is MedImage, and who do you use as your website, like builder or your web host?
Yeah, so being an open source software company, we tend to use open source tools when we can. We share, we put tools out to the community, and they put tools out to us. And so we base our software on our websites on the WordPress, which is a pretty popular open source setup, and we have a particular template which we've purchased on top of that WordPress based WordPress. And it was built for medical sort of setups, and it fitted our needs quite nicely. And so yeah, this is all run off our own service. So we self-host, which is a little bit unusual, but we needed to do that for privacy reasons. We did have some of our servers hosted on Google servers in Australia, but at a lot of our New Zealand doctors were a little bit cautious about having their data tripping across to Australia and back again. So we rebuilt and set up our own server farm in New Zealand here. So that's what this is actually running off. But yeah.
And that is, so I've got like a huge list here of all the tech that you use to run this business. So, and a lot of it I'm actually not that familiar with. So I'm going to jump off of this site now, and we can just have a bit of a chat about some of the tech that you use. So as far as your website, you're using WordPress, but then how are you doing like your interactions with your customers and your employee, well, I guess your team, let's say?
Yeah, so that's where the other half of our organization really comes into this. So we've been in the background to MedImage, we've been building an open source messaging tool. Now, this is a little bit like, say, perhaps WhatsApp or Facebook or Twitter, something in that sort of genre. But we're a public platform where all of our software is available to download and look at. So you can run pretty much your own Facebook on your own server effectively, something like that.
Yeah.
And so we use that software ourselves, and we use it internally within the company. So we communicate and we have internal chats going on within the company over that platform, AtomJump Messaging. But we also use that to communicate with customers, both in the sense of oh yeah, we bring it up here.
Yeah, I just thought I would put it on while you were talking about it.
Yeah, so we use this as a facility to chat with customers, but also to bring up sort of live information about what's happening in the business, such as the service status of our transfer servers, and so forth. So as you can see, there's apps on there, and there's different choices, but the core of it works straight over the web. So it's pretty much works inside your web browser. So as you're scrolling past there, you can see it's a non-profit. So it's the non-profit side. We have our company, which is AtomJump Limited, and that's what we earn, and we do earn income from that, but that contributes to the non-profit AtomJump side.
Yeah, cool. I love it. I love how you guys are just so innovative, where you just go, oh yeah, we'll just we'll just build our own.
Yeah, it's not always quite so simple. I don't know if I'd recommend that for everybody, but yeah, for us, we build that technology up over some time, and for us with MedImage, it was convenient. We could use it directly.
Yeah, I love that. So as far as, so that's your messaging with your internal and your customers, but I can see you also use, is it Tutanota for email?
Yeah,
I haven't heard of those either. So you may Google.
Yeah, so Tutanota, I was doing a hunt around really on the web, and they're a German company, and they the reason why we're looking for alternatives, really, we as an open source company, we don't necessarily want to be dependent on a lot of the US technology companies. So we're pretty much a New Zealand-based outfit, and we need to be able to be work even if some of these US services were to break down. So we were looking for an alternative to Gmail, which was open source, and we could download and potentially put on our servers. So similar to ourselves with our own messaging. And we found Tutanota, and yeah, we've been using it now for about half a year. And it's a good alternative to Gmail. We think it's pretty competitive with it, and we always have that, while we're using their German hosted version of it, we always have that option to bring it locally onto our own servers.
Cool.
So yeah.
I know that we're going to possibly do a session with you where you're going to talk about getting off of some of these servers and making sure that if you're a Kiwi-based business, we can, we don't go down with the ship, so to speak, if some of the other things go off. So, that'll be coming up in the future. And then I'm just going to keep going down the list. So what kind of communications do you use in order to gather information about what you're trying to produce? And anything that you use for collaborative work?
So collaboratively, we again, we have a sort of documentations a little bit like Google Docs. There was another open source alternative to that as well. And I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but we use that regularly. It's probably on your list.
Cloud and Collaba.
Yes,
Oh, Collabora.
Collabora, that's the one.
Yeah, Collabora.
Yeah, and so that again was another sort of option for documents, and we do share those documents a bit like with Google Docs as well. But in terms of sharing it out with the wider community, we've mainly, most of our business happens through word of mouth. So there's more communication which takes place between the doctors. You know, once they start using it, they love it, and they tell other doctors about it. And so that's been our sort of main marketing route, really, is just pure word of mouth. We've looked at other facilities. We do use something for surveys. So within our foundation, SurveyMonkey, and that is a facility for us to, with the foundation, we do sort of votes amongst the whole team, amongst the foundation members, if you like, on strategic direction that we're going to take, and those are public votes, but it's just our team who are actually voting on it, and so that seems to be a really good sort of external tool which we use, and it gives us indication of where to head.
You've got draw.io for your diagrams and imagery. Is that like something to do with how MedImage works, or is that like for your building, or how?
That's more for flowcharts and things like that. So it's that's an external web service. It's just a very sort of easy to use, quick to set up. No matter what machine I'm on, I can just jump onto it, and you know, it's internet based, so you share your diagram across to other machines and so forth.
I haven't used that. Like I think what is so cool about this is because you use lots of alternative and open source. I actually don't apparently use any of these things, so I'm learning about all this new tech that I haven't, apps that I'm not familiar with, like Pixabay. I'm not sure what that is, but
yeah. Well, they're like an image repository. So we use them, the background photos of some of our messaging pages. So if you go to a different messaging page, suddenly it will pop up with something which is relevant to the topic, the page that you've gone to, and we don't store all of that. It just gets extracted from the Pixabay.
Very cool. And Raspberry Pi, is that?
Raspberry Pis, yeah. So this is kind of where our servers have been built on. They're little machines, about sort of so big, I guess, if you can see the size of my hands. So they're actually put together by another nonprofit in the UK, and they're largely used for education purposes, and so they're small computers basically, and sort of credit card sized computers, and they run at a good spec. The website that you were showing before, that's all sitting on those Raspberry Pi servers.
Wow.
And they use like a mobile phone chip on them, so they're quite low energy, which means that our server farm is all using renewable energy and so forth. So we're trying to use mixture of solar and hydro power, etc. So for us, we almost structure them in like an organic way, and they sit on a fairly flexible surface, so that down in Christchurch here, if we have earthquakes, we're built to cope with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Christchurch, I mean, I love Christchurch, honestly. I'm really impressed by the ingenuity that's come out of Christchurch with everything that's happened over the past few years. Whenever I go down, I really enjoy just the way that the city has come together and rebuilt itself kind of around what's happened there. And I just think it's a real special place. It's a really beautiful place. Okay, and then I kind of want to touch on just two more things. So we've got Apache, I think.
Yep. Yeah, Apache. Yeah, so that's our web server. So that's another very popular web server. And you probably have been using this everywhere you go on the web, but you wouldn't even know it was sitting behind these things. Yeah, so that's what that software sits on. It's also open source, and that sits on our Raspberry Pi servers.
Such a cute name, Raspberry Pi. You just want to have one. And then so now comes to like the real backbone, I guess, or the important stuff, and that's just kind of payments. What do you use for your accounting software?
Yeah, so we're definitely going with Xero at the moment. That's definitely helped out our whole setup really, and they're New Zealand based, and we've having to look at all sorts of alternative options. We do have an alternative sitting in the background, but we haven't really taken it to the point of actually using it yet. Xero does things that's very convenient within New Zealand, and yeah, we've stuck with them for now. But no, it's a good service, and yeah. In terms of on our website payments, we use Paymark, who are another Auckland-based team, and we do have PayPal, which is it's a US company, but we're gradually transferring it over to Paymark just because we want to keep income that we earn within New Zealand really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's so important. And I mean, like, we love the folks over at Xero. They do lots of they have done lots of sessions with us over the past 6 months. It's been really good support. And I think one of the things that I really like about them is if you're a member, you yourself and all of your family members are entitled to mental health stuff. So like you can have free counseling for yourself and your family members there. And I think that's a really beautiful thing for a big institution to kind of recognize that small businesses and, experience hardships, and supporting people's mental health is a really beautiful way to give back to the community,
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, well, it's a really important thing. I think for everybody who's watching this program today, it's if you're setting up a business, you feel a lot like you're alone, and you're sort of fighting everybody out there in a sense. But yeah, there's quite a community you can get in touch with, and DigitalBoost is part of that, I think.
Yeah, we love it. We love just being there to support small businesses and like helping people to grow, and I mean, like following people on their journey and hearing people say, oh yeah, look, I watched this session and I've already set up my page now. I set it up while I was watching. Like, this was really helpful, which is such a cool thing to watch people get the information they need to move forward on their journeys. So I guess, like, you use all these tools, you've got all this knowledge, but what would be your biggest kind of tip or your advice to other small businesses out there, having gone on this journey?
I think it's partly an acceptance that you don't know everything in terms of what you really need to listen to people who are coming to you with their needs in terms of a product which is going to be marketable. And you don't know everything about setting up a business either. You have to learn a lot of it along the way, and you have to coordinate in with the whole team. It's not just about yourself and your knowledge. And so partly I think it's accepting that some of these things are out of your hands, that they're going to go the way they're going to go, and you've just you're kind of along for the ride almost, and you're coordinating people, but you're not necessarily knowing everything about every detail of things.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's great advice. I mean, I just think that, often if we can help each other out, we all lift when we help each other up. And I'm a big firm believer. I've always said, people are like, oh, do you have a problem asking questions? Like, no, I literally, if I need help, I will ask you. I'll be the first one to say that I need some help.
You have to ask questions. Yeah. And that's crucial, I think, for anybody who's in that sort of startup phase of a business.
And
Yeah.
there's so many people out there that are willing, that have walked the walk already, that are willing to like offer you a little bit of their time and their experience because they know how somebody helped them to get started. And, you know, now they're now in a position where they can help you get started. And that's such a cool little
Yeah.
circular economy, kind of that sharing culture. I love that. I just think it's absolutely beautiful to see in action.
Well, it happened to myself just the other day. One of our people who we'd been working with, he was setting up his own business, and so yeah, he said, "Can I come and have a chat?" You know, and ask some advice on how to set up this and this, etc. And so yeah, I was happy to. You know, I like to encourage that sort of thing and share whatever sort of experience I've come through and popped out the other end of. So it's definitely challenging, you know, starting up a business. So so yeah, it's you're right. It goes around in a circle in many respects. Yeah.
Yeah, is that beautiful? Yeah, circular economy. I just love that. I just love that kind of stuff. And we're really grateful that you've joined us today and kind of shared your journey, your team's journey, with both of your businesses. Well, your product and your business. So AtomJump, your business, and your product, MedImage, and how it's just continuing to grow. And it's such cool technology that is helping the medical field, which is really cool. And AtomJump giving us a bit more privacy and, you know, giving us a bit more ownership on our conversations. And we love all of that. I think so much innovation comes out of New Zealand. You know, I think we can tell from our accents that we are not possibly the most native Kiwis, but I think that what happens here in New Zealand is that there's lots of that shed and duct tape kind of mentality where like we'll build it ourselves, we'll figure it out. And I just love the innovation that comes out of this country. And it's now that it's so global with the way that we communicate, the ideas that are coming out of here are just going everywhere across the world, which is really cool, you know, because probably this mentality began because we couldn't get access to the other, you know, the bigger
Yeah.
kind of areas in Europe and, you know, the States and stuff like that. So people had to start to create this culture of innovation. And now, you know, we're seeing that so many benefits coming out of having instilled that within Aotearoa. So good on you and your team for taking the initiative and just building things that need to be built. So yeah.
Anyway, yeah, a pleasure to be here today. So and be on your service as well. So so no, that's fine. It's we're happy to help out where we can. So other New Zealand businesses as well. So
and we're looking forward to having you on as more of like an expert, talking about how Kiwis can kind of get off some of these servers. I don't understand. You're going to explain it. It'll be great. But we're looking forward to that in the future. So and that will be all for us today. So thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and your expertise, and have a great rest of the day. Ka kite.
thanks, Henry. Bye now.
My pleasure. Bye.